everyone having a good morning so far? Yeah. And we hope all of you are having a wonderful time, too, wherever you are watching us from. We welcome you. We're glad you're here. And if you ever get in our neighborhood, our neck of the woods, please come join us in person, because we're really a lot of fun. Oh, yeah. We have a good time, yes? Yes, we do. Like I was saying to everybody before you joined us, we're sticking with the ideas of freedom for this month and for next month, and until we feel like not doing it any longer. Yeah. So this is a good song from Shantae called Freedom. We build walls when we should be building bridges. We lose touch when we ought to be holding on. We hold back when we really should be giving. We hold out when we're holding on to nothing at all. Freedom from fear of certain failure. Freedom from the bar we place across every door. Freedom from things we just imagine. Freedom from all that came before. When we should be learning from silence. We think twice when we shouldn't think at all. We give in when we should stand and speak our truth. We give up, then it's going. Freedom from fear of certain failure. Freedom from the bar we place across every door. Freedom from things we just imagine. Freedom from all that came before. Freedom. Jealousy, pride, anger, and heartbreak. Freedom. Freedom from everything you want, but really you don't need. Freedom. Freedom from glamour and illusion and insurance companies. Freedom. Freedom from atomic bombs and wars and penitentiaries. Freedom. Freedom from all our addictions and our poor pitiful me. Freedom. Freedom from sickness and sorrow, ignorance and poverty. Freedom. Freedom from all bondages, just the freedom just to be. Freedom. 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 Oh. Yeah.
We'd like to welcome everybody on social media today here at the Temple of the Living God. And we like to welcome our guest speaker today, Jeremy McDonald. We're so very happy to have him back with us. And his talk title is Living in the Now with Spirit. And my inspirational reading I've taken from Daily Word. It's entitled, In the Now. And I quote, "Fully aware of this present moment, I find peace. In the precise moments when I am laughing out loud, I am not thinking about the past and certainly not worrying about the future. In such moments, I am fully invested in the now, in the present moment. I can also be in the now by taking a rest from the mental noise of anxious thoughts and feelings in just letting myself be. I enter into a state of being where there are no problems nor challenges, only peace. In the now, I am aware of God's presence within and around me, and I am at peace. In this now moment, I am connecting with the source of all wisdom. Abandoning concerns to God, I trust that all details will be taken care of. Knowing what is mine to express, I go with the flow. In the now, I am fully aware of God and of the peace of God that resonates within me. And from Colossians 3, verse 15, let the peace of Christ rule in your hearts and be thankful. And so it is. Yes. And now let us listen to our Carol and the Goodfellows as they sing Walking with the Spirit.
Well, I'm walking
in spirit,
and I'm talking
in spirit,
well, I'm learning
in spirit,
and I'm turning
in spirit,
well, I'm growing
in spirit,
and it's showing, yeah,
in spirit,
I'm walking with the Spirit in front of me. When I find myself in one of those situations that's leading me to some kind of trouble or confrontation, I go within and I get plugged in before it's too late. I put the Spirit in front of me to make those crooked places straight. Yeah, I'm walking
in spirit,
and I'm talking.
in spirit,
Yeah, I'm learning
in spirit,
and I'm turning.
in spirit,
I'm growing.
in spirit,
Yeah, I'm showing.
in spirit,
I'm walking with the Spirit in front of me. I'm walking,
spirit,
yeah, I'm talking.
with spirit,
Oh, I'm learning,
in spirit,
yeah, I'm turning.
in spirit,
Well, I'm growing,
in spirit,
and it's showing.
in spirit,
I'm walking with the Spirit in front of me. When I find myself in one of those situations where I don't know what to do and I've got no explanation, go within and get plugged in for a revelation. 10 times out of 9 it'll work out fine without my participation. Yeah, yeah.
walking in spirit,
And I'm talking.
in spirit,
Well, I'm learning.
in spirit,
Yeah, and I'm burning.
in spirit,
I'm growing.
in spirit,
And it's showing.
in spirit,
Well, I'm walking with the Spirit in front of me.
Good morning, everybody. How's everybody doing? Such good energy. It's a good thing. Just a question. Has anybody ever had those moments where you feel like the whole world just stopped and you feel like it just paused just for a second? Even like the cars driving by you feel like they're moving slower than the 70 miles an hour that they're actually doing. You guys know what I'm talking about? Yeah. Yeah, these are these moments where you're in that now of the moment, and you're kind of just with spirit. And I was just remembering a moment. I was working up in North Tampa, and there was this nature preserve right around the office where I worked. And I used to, on my breaks, I would take walks out there because it just helped me refresh myself and go back into the office and work. And so this one moment, one day I was walking, and I was just kind of just feeling the breeze and just really getting into this moment. I could see the trees swaying back and forth. And then I would literally looked up, and there was this bald eagle flying in the sky. But for just a second, it felt like literally this eagle stopped flying in midair. And I looked, and I think, that's not possible, But I just breathed just for a second because I was like, wow. And then I realized earlier that morning when I was driving into work, this woman had literally was waving at me on 75, and she was trying to yell out the window at me, and I'm like, what is she doing? And she was basically, I thought I heard her say, you need to slow down. I was like, I'm doing 70, and it's 70 miles an hour. But what she was really saying is that you have a flat tire. I learned that later on. And so, but then I had literally looked up at a sign, and it said, click it or ticket and slow down. And I was like, what does that mean? Well, in that moment with that eagle and that slowing down and that pause, I thought, I had been going 1,000,000 miles an hour in my life and hadn't taken any moments for myself. I was constantly doing for everybody else, and it was just one of those things where I was codependently working on being a healer and all that other kind of stuff. But being a healer also means working on yourself. Am I correct? Okay. So it was a message. In living in the now with Spirit, Spirit is always trying to guide us, always trying to show us, but we're always looking for profound moments like that. But Spirit's always dropping little nuggets in our life. Has anybody ever watched a television show and you're like, you stop for a second and you're like, wow, that was really profound what they just said. And I'm like, I'm learning from a television show. You ever had those moments? Most wisdom comes from Yoda in Star Wars, by the way, and so we'll call it Yoda spirituality. So, but the interesting thing about spirituality is I've found the basics of spirituality are very simple. It's the work, the actual work, that becomes very hard. It's the digging into yourself and facing yourself. And I just saw something really recently. They were defining the difference between metaphysics and spirituality. And they said this, one of the things that it says is spirituality is the practice of getting to know yourself in relation to the spiritual world and really getting to know yourself on a deeper level. But it's not like emotional intelligence. It's literally like facing the inner spirit and understanding that part of yourself. So one of the things I've practiced for a very long time is those moments that really upset me or hurt me, or I was just telling Reverend Zemke and Reverend Karmene earlier that a couple weeks ago I had everybody ever had one of those, I call them funky days, where you just feel like, bleh. And I was literally, the mind poison was going in, and I was like, I'm always the positive one. Why am I in such a bad day? And I was literally in judgment of myself. Well, you know what judgment does? It makes it worse, right? So I was literally just diving into myself, and I was starting to, I'm taking a group of people, 16 people, to Scotland in November. And so I was literally saying, well, what if it doesn't work out? And doing all the what ifs, all the fear. And I'm like, finally I had to stop and say, Jeremy, 9 people have already paid for their plane tickets. You haven't even told them about the itinerary yet. The energy's moving in that direction. So you kind of have to be your own coach. But what is happening is the Spirit is trying to put things in front of you so that you can get thinner in the heaviness in yourself, those heavy thoughts. And so use those moments. What I would say is those moments where you have those funky days, I say, allow it in. And people say, well, I can't do that. I don't want to be negative. I'm like, well, those moments, if you just brush them under the rug, they come back. They're like beach balls underwater. They just pop up at the wrong time. And then you have those moments where you're snapping at the McDonald's worker for no reason. Ever have that happen to them? You're like, why did that just happen? And it's because you haven't faced that part of yourself that's triggered. And so the more and more you look at yourself, and one of my favorite sayings my grandmother used to say to me, and I'm sure you'll all know this one, you got one finger pointing out in judgment. How many you got pointing back at you? 3. That's not about judging people. It's about taking that moment when you're in judgment and looking at yourself. So Spirit is literally putting these opportunities in your life so you can look at yourself. And why do you want to look at yourself? Because the more you thin yourself out with all those heavy thoughts, the greater and the more profound this world becomes. So a lot of times, especially in the past few years, we've been tested. Am I correct? We've been tested in our spirituality. And the blessing in the last 3 years, I mean, there's been a lot of things that it's been heavy on the heart, but there's the blessing in the last 3 years, for me at least, is in the beginning in lockdown, I'm a very extroverted person. So for me to sit there at my house caused a depression. I hadn't had one in probably 10 years, not like that, where it was just literally I was just so depressed. And the gift is when I came out of that, I was so inspired to live and be out here and share how I feel I want to live. And I started realizing we're all looking for a purpose. Have you ever gone through it? I said, what's my purpose in life? You ever went through that? Your purpose is in the now of the moment. In the now of the moment, we are sitting in St. Petersburg at the Temple of the Living God, building energy, building spiritual energy. And what happens is when the heart comes together, when these hearts come together, it says 2 or more gather in my name, and it says who will be there? The Father, right? So what that is telling us is that we come together, and we come together in our hearts, just like we are right now. This affects the entire universe. The entire universe. So right now, somewhere along the line, somebody that's having a bad day or a hurtful day or a sad day, this energy is literally touching people's lives because spiritual energy doesn't have it's 200 miles away, I have to drive there or get on a plane. It literally just touches people's lives. Does that make sense? Yes. And that's what I want you to understand. When you're living in the now of the moment with Spirit, you never know where you're going to be. Last night I went out with a couple of my friends, and I just happened to have this young man sitting next to me, and he was feeling down about himself. And I looked at him and I said, you have everything you need to be successful. The only thing that's preventing you from being successful is what's going on right here. And he looked at me and said, thank you. I feel like I was supposed to sit here next to you. And he goes, at the most random place. And it doesn't matter if he does anything with that, it released it through me. So I want to explain that a little bit, because when you're living in the now with Spirit, Spirit gives us messages and things that we have to release, or it has to come out of our throat or our mouth. And what happens, who's ever had that experience where you're like, I'm not going to say anything, but you really feel like you do need to say something? Anybody ever done that? The interesting part about this, and this isn't about guilt or what you should or should not do, but what happens is that when we prevent energy from moving through us, and when Spirit is giving us a message or something that needs to work through us, it stores inside of us. And we want to make sure that energy or that message is coming through us when we need it, when it comes in the now of the moment. And we've all had these experiences where we've held back. And what I'm here to tell people is it's no longer time to hold back. These last 3 years have told us something. We can miss out on opportunities, and then we won't have the opportunity again, at least not in this incarnation. Does that make sense? So take charge and take those now of the moments with Spirit when they're having those moments where that lady was literally telling me that I had a flat tire, but the truth is what she needed to do. It wasn't about the flat tire for me. It was about, I needed to pull over at 7-Eleven and put air in the tire, but it was more about the message of slow down and pay attention and have these moments with Spirit, because Spirit is constantly working through us. And we're looking for this voice in our head a lot of times, or this profound thing, but there's so many nuggets of how this happens. The universe is literally talking to you constantly. And the joyous thing about that is these moments where it happens where there's an eagle that stops in the middle of the thing. Like, I know you've all had these experiences. Maybe not an eagle, but there's something where you're like, you can't make this up. And that's why we're in this world, because the deeper and deeper we get into our spirituality, the closer and closer we get to God or spirit or whatever you want to refer to it as. I like to refer to God as goodness over doubt. It is the goodness in you that overcomes the doubt in you. And the other aspect of that is all about doubt and fear and anxiety and preventing us from doing what? Living. So what I want everybody to do is just go out there and live, and we're so afraid of making a mistake. I've made countless mistakes in my life, some of them that I would care not to share with people, but I do. I put it right in the beginning of my book. And the reason being is because we can't be afraid to tell people that I've made such profound mistakes, but what I gained from it was invaluable. Now, am I going to repeat those mistakes? No. Does that make sense? And so what ends up, hopefully, well, there's been a couple times where I'm like, why do I keep on doing this to myself? Everybody been there before? A lot of times the center's around family, or friends that are not exactly, I don't want to say toxic, that's a bad word, but what I would say is people that are not necessarily in my space. Does that make sense? Because everybody's on their own journey. And one of the other things that this came to me from Spirit, probably like 15 years ago, there was a book I was reading, it was called Busting Loose from the Money Game. And it had nothing to do with spirituality, it was literally about manifestation of money and abundance. But what it told me was this. He said something, and he was talking about how we judge ourselves and how we judge the limitations of what we can have as far as abundance. And when it hit me, Spirit said, Jer, judgment is what holds the glue of the illusion together. It's the glue that holds the illusion together. So when you're judging somebody else, you're not in your own garden, pruning the garden, taking care of it, and living your life. You're literally living somebody else's life and worrying about what they're doing, instead of experiencing your life and the joy that this life is. Now, no doubt, I look at social media, and probably at least twice this week I've wanted to make a comment, and then I'm like, stop. And we have to discipline ourselves. And the practice with spirituality, Charles Fillmore said that spirituality is a lifelong process. So people tell me, when was your awakening moment? I'm like, which one? There's been a lot of them. And they're like, no, that one moment where you just realize that everything. I say, I'm telling you, there's been more than one. It literally happens all the time. So my funky day a couple weeks ago literally was an awakening for me, a new one, and I've written 6 chapters in my second book. And I was telling Reverend Zemke that my publicist has been telling me for several years, Jer, I'm turning 76. I'm not getting any younger. If you want me to be the publicist on this, then you're going to have to get this book done. And I'm like, I called her the other day and I said, I'm almost done. I'm done before the end of the summer. And what I've done is I literally learned this thing called Dictate on Microsoft Word, and I literally just talk into it. And because I can talk on a stage and speak and just have it come out of me, but for the life of me, when I try to sit down and type it out, I literally just freeze up and block. But if I talk through this, it puts all the words on paper for me, and then I just have to edit it. How amazing is that? And so what I want you to understand is that there's so many blessings for you, and you can do anything you want. My best friend just left his job as a medical billing manager, and he was, the other day, he had asked me to come to Countryside Mall and have lunch with him and hang out with him for a bit, and he's left his job to go into real estate. Well, most people would say, now's a bad time to go into real estate. But I would say it's a perfect time to go into real estate, because now is the time for him to learn and grow. And he's been really filled with, he's excited, but he also has doubt coming inside of him. He's always had that really kind of insecurity and doubt in his life. And I said, listen, the greatest part about what you're getting ready to do is when you face all that rejection and that doubt and all those things that you're going to experience in a sales role, in building your business, so to speak, each time you have a success, it's going to help you get stronger in yourself. And in this sense, his real estate job is very spiritual. Because remember what I said, spirituality is about getting to know yourself and your relationship with spirit. So, I know everybody can relate to having doubt in their life, am I correct? Okay? So I looked right at him. And he's in his 40s now. When he was younger, he was very attractive, and people would just literally, all these wealthy men would take him out to dinner and just shower him with gifts. So I looked at him and I said, did you ever have a doubt that you would have dates when you were younger? He's like, no, I didn't. I said, well, that was based on your looks. But I want you to do is I want you to base it on what's going on in your heart. And then I looked at him and I said, do you believe that you deserve to be successful in real estate and everything in life? And he goes, well, I guess. I was like, no, it's yes or no. And that's why you have to start saying to yourself and disciplining in yourself. When you are wanting to take a step forward and take a leap of faith and you want to be successful, and I don't care what it is, the question is, do you deserve to be successful? And Spirit wants you to answer this, yes or no. There is no, oh, well, I'm sure, blah, 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 blah. You have to say yes. There's nowhere in the Bible in Genesis where God is creating the heavens and the earth, and he says, well, maybe I want the animals to be there, and I want 2 of everything. Well, and maybe, could you please form the waters? No, he doesn't do that. And we're made in the image of what? God. So it's yes or no. So when you want to step forward in something, that's what I want you to start asking yourself. Do I believe I deserve the best of everything and to be successful in this? And if there's any doubt, if there's any wishy-washiness, the universe doesn't know what to do. It's like, well, do they want to do this or not? And the answer should be what? Yes. Or no. I'll leave you with that. Much love, everybody.
Thank you, Jeremy. I remember in saying yes, a lot of doors and windows opened, unlike if I had said no. So, good reminder. Thank you. Thank you for your wisdom, your truth, your knowledge. So, we are so very blessed. Thank you. And so now we're going to move into our time of tithes and offerings. And we invite you to take your tithes and gifts in your hands and bless them. And I would ask the ushers to come forth at this time. Let us pray. Infinite source of life, we give thanks for this opportunity to give from our hearts as Spirit guides us. And we know that as we give, we do receive in abundance. And we acknowledge that divine love moving through in and each and every one of us blesses and multiplies all that we have, all that we give, and all that we receive. And so it is. Amen. And those of you on social media, we also invite you to participate in giving of your hearts as well. There, if you're on the website, you can see the donate button. And if you're on YouTube, you can log on to the website, www.tlgtemple.org. And then follow the queue, and we thank you so much for your donations as well. And as we close out our service today, once again, we're going to be listening to Carol and the Goodfellows. And go ahead.
You're going to be singing with Carol and the Goodfellows. Yes. So look in your programs. You'll see the lyrics are printed out. We're going to sing together, This Land Is Your Land. We're only going to do the front page because there's a lot of text there. We don't want to go through all that. So follow along with us, if you will.
Everybody go ahead and stand up.
Yeah.
What the heck? Everybody ready? Here we go. This land is your land. This land is my land. From California to the New York Island. From the redwood forest to the Gulf Stream waters. This land was made for you and me. As I went walking that ribbon of highway, I saw above me that endless skyway. I saw below I roamed and rambled and followed my footsteps to the sparkling sands of her diamond deserts, and all around me a voice was sounding. This land was made for you and me.
One more time.
This land is your land. This land is my land. From California to the New York Island, from the redwood forest to the Gulf Stream waters. This land was made for you and me. Woo-hoo!
Thanks, y'all. Thanks for singing with us. Now go out there and buy some books. See you next week.
And don't forget Lynn's class.